Brodie, an airline pilot and ex-Royal Air Force pilot, is rushing his way through the bustling airport, engaged in a call with his daughter. He assured her that once his flight duties were completed, he'd be with her soon. Brodie entered the cockpit, where his co-pilot greeted him. Shortly afterward, an FBI agent approached Brodie. The agent revealed he would be escorting Louis, a criminal and dangerous, unpredictable man. Once on board, Brodie coordinated with the crew, ensuring all passengers were seated and the flight could proceed. After takeoff, Brodie shared his affection for his daughter with his co-pilot, emphasizing the unbreakable bond between them. As the plane journeyed through the night, turbulent weather set in, increasing Brodie's unease. He instructed the passengers to fasten their seat belts, attempting multiple times to establish radio contact with air traffic control. However, communication lines remained dead. Suddenly, a surge of electricity jolted the aircraft, causing it to lurch violently. Although the passengers were unharmed, Brodie's concerns deepened as the lights flickered and dimmed. The plane was struck again, throwing Brodie against the wall and leaving him with a head injury. Struggling to regain his composure, Brodie and his co-pilot fought to keep the plane under control amid malfunctioning equipment and limited visibility. Realizing that another electrical shock could be catastrophic, Brodie made the bold decision to initiate an emergency descent. The announcement caused panic among the passengers, with one woman unbuckling her seatbelt. In the midst of the descent, an object struck the plane from above, resulting in the death of Louis's FBI escort and a flight attendant. The crew worked tirelessly to stabilize the aircraft, and the flight attendants reassured passengers while preparing for a nearby emergency landing. As the crew scanned the landscape below, they identified an island, deciding it was their best option for an emergency touchdown. The plane landed roughly, but everyone survived. Brodie breathed a sigh of relief upon discovering residual power still running through the aircraft. He ordered the passengers to disembark, ensuring they had access to food and water while awaiting further help. Meanwhile, the owner of the airline grew anxious, having lost contact with Brodie's flight for an extended period. He contacted a rescue specialist to investigate. Back on the island, the flight attendant informed Brodie of agent's death. Brodie instructed her to focus on managing the remaining passengers. He addressed the group, explaining the emergency landing and the plane's limited power. While working to restore functionality, Brodie and his co-pilot studied a map and made a grim discovery. They were stranded on an island controlled by a merciless private army. Determined to protect his passengers, Brodie devised a plan to call for rescue. He unshackled Louis, deciding they needed every ally available. While trekking through the dense forest, Louis grew suspicious of Brodie's motives and questioned him relentlessly. Suddenly, Louis vanished into the shadows, leaving Brodie on his own. At the same time, the rescue expert reviewed surveillance footage of the flight and was impressed by Brodie's combat skills during an altercation with another passenger. Realizing that time was of the essence, the expert contacted the airline owner, urging him to dispatch a rescue team immediately. In an abandoned factory, Brodie discovered a broken radio, which he painstakingly repaired. Connecting it to a phone, he tried to communicate their location to the mainland. Unfortunately, the call was garbled, and the person on the other end couldn't understand him. Thinking quickly, Brodie instructed his daughter to relay the information to his office. Before he could make another move, an assailant attacked him, but Brodie swiftly subdued the attacker. Just then, Louis reappeared, having defeated a group of armed men and confiscated their weapons. Offering Brodie one of the firearms, Louis proposed they continue together. During their descent from the factory, they stumbled upon a hidden camera revealing horrifying footage. The rebels had been abducting travelers, demanding ransoms from their families. Realizing the grave danger, Brodie and Louis rushed to the passengers' location. Back at the plane, the rebels had already arrived, forcing the passengers into captivity. Chaos erupted as a woman tried to flee but was shot. Louis restrained Brodie from intervening, warning him that it would be suicidal to take on the entire gang alone. The armed group began looting the aircraft, but Brodie and Louis managed to ambush two of the looters, interrogating them at gunpoint. They learned the passengers were being taken to a nearby factory. Meanwhile, The rescue specialists relayed the island's dire situation to the airline owner, who immediately deployed a private rescue team to the island. Brodie and Louis infiltrated the factory, taking down guards quietly. Inside, they found the rebels recording videos of the passengers, likely to demand ransom. They attacked the guards in a fierce ambush, freeing the passengers and leading them toward the plane. The private rescue team arrived at the aircraft, engaging in a gunfight with the rebels. Despite heavy resistance, the private security team secured the plane and protected the passengers. With no time to lose, Brodie and Louis directed everyone to board the aircraft. As they prepared for takeoff, Louis hesitated, tempted by a stash of money he found among the private team's belongings. Grabbing the cash, Louis tried to flee, but the rebels' leader fired a rocket launcher at the plane. Louis shot the leader down, clearing the way for Brodie to take off. With the private security team aboard, Brodie skillfully piloted the damaged aircraft toward a safer destination. Despite sustaining further damage mid-flight, Brodie made an emergency landing near a remote airfield. Once on solid ground, the passengers were overcome with relief, grateful for their narrow escape. Shortly after, the rescue team arrived, bringing everyone to safety. Applause erupted among the passengers as they honored Brodie's bravery and leadership. After ensuring all were safely boarded with the rescue team, Brodie finally took a moment to reconnect with his daughter, who was overjoyed